The following program contains tales of the strange, the tragic, and the downright far out. Some stories may include mentions of death, true crime, or mental health. Listener discretion is advised, but curiosity is always encouraged. Welcome back, my strange friends. Thank you for tuning in to Strange and Far Out. I'm Tessyrella, your guide through the smoky corridors of the curious and the taboo. Tonight, we're getting intimate with a crime of passion, the kind that doesn't end in roses, but in a razor wire. We're talking about hybristophilia, the so-called Bonnie and Clyde syndrome, the psychological phenomenon where people, often women, find themselves drawn to those who've committed unspeakable acts. Some fall in love with the monster, some write letters to them, and some even marry them in society. Well, society cannot stop watching. So light that candle, pour yourself a little something, and let's explore what happens when love goes criminally far out. All right, my strange ones, it's time to check the vibe. It's my mood ring moment, and my mood ring tonight is a deep, dark gray because October is over, and I can't help but to feel a little dark cloud looming over me. Something about having one of my favorite seasons just abruptly end really just kind of puts me into a funk. I felt like that last year after I got married. I got married in 3 months. So it was go, 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 go. It was a lot of stress, but it was a lot of fun. And I remember the day after, I just felt like this odd, weird silence. And I kind of felt that today or yesterday, actually. It just was silent. I don't know. Really enjoyed Halloween time this year. I tried my best to stretch it out for as long as I could. I swear, once July was over, I was celebrating. I was celebrating October. I started sprinkling in Halloween because, why not? I needed some feel-good hormones. I needed that serotonin. I needed that dopamine rush that Halloween seems to give me and a whole lot of other people. So yeah, I stretched it out for as long as possible. I had the best Halloween this year. Last year was amazing too because I got to trick or treat with my friends and their kids as well. But this year, it was very special. It was my kids and my nieces and family and my son's friends. And it just felt like that Halloween movie. It felt like the 90s. It was just really, really nice. And being that I've been in such a weird headspace this year, I really just put a lot of emphasis on making sure I celebrated as much as I could. I wore Halloween stuff all the time, had a little Halloween backpack. I bought a lot of pumpkins this year, and I even carved a few, but being that it was so hot, they only seemed to have they only lasted a few days tops. And then they started having this weird liquid coming out of them, and then they got moldy, and it was really gross, but it was still really fun. And I even tried to make one of those pumpkin head things so that I could like put it on and take pictures, but that didn't work out. The pumpkin was really, really heavy and it hurt. It hurt to put on, but I wasn't going to have anybody else put it on. But it was still fun. I didn't get a whole lot of joy as a child, but come Halloween time, that was the best. My mom used to decorate the house and she made this ugly monster who would sit in the front every single year. And I think she named him Oscar. Oscar. For some reason, Oscar wore a Los Angeles Raiders sweatshirt and he held a can of Budweiser. And also, the costumes were always DIY, but they were so much fun. Like, it wasn't like, I'm sure, yes, licensed costumes did exist and, getting a costume, but I just really loved putting a costume together. And this year kind of felt like that too because I was running around last minute trying to get my little one a costume. He changed his mind a lot, but being that I was just so tired, I was just like, you know what? No, this is a memory. This is a core memory. So I just, I tried to have that type of Halloween. And I remember my mom used to get up really early. We used to get up really early on Halloween. And then she would get me ready. And then sometimes I would have friends come over and she would get them ready because she used to be so good at hair and makeup. So yeah, that's a little thing that I remember. And I'm just trying to make it special for my kids and for myself because, it's just been a hell of a year. All right, my far out friends, we are cracking open the time capsule, and it is taking us back to when serial killers became celebrities. So let's rewind to the 1970s, the golden era of sensationalism, a decade where the nightly news turned murder into primetime entertainment and the courtroom into a stage. Ted Bundy, a law student, clean cut, articulate, didn't look like the monster people were warned about. And that perhaps made him even more dangerous. When his trial hit television, women lined up outside just to get a glimpse of him. Some swore he was innocent, others swore they were in love. He was charming. I will say this, I didn't understand just how charming this man was until I took a deep dive and watched a few documentaries about him this weekend. And having done that, I want to pause our little journey for a moment and zoom in on one of the strangest love stories in criminal history. One that illustrates our theme of attraction to infamy. It involves Ted Bundy and a woman named Carol Ann Boone. Picture it. Cigarette smoke drifting through the courthouse hallways, the smell of Polaroids developing, and the headlines that sold faster than disco records. Before we talk about Ted Bundy's infamous courtroom marriage, we need to rewind just a few frames, back to the woman who loved him before the world even did. Her name was Elizabeth Kendall. She met Ted in 1969, and for the next 6 years, they built what looked like a normal life. They went on trips together, dinners, they lived together, and he even helped to raise her daughter. But love can blur the edges of reality. We all have been in relationships with people and not wanted to see those red flags. But Elizabeth began noticing things. A meat cleaver hidden in his desk drawer, a surgical glove tucked inside his coat pocket, and a cast and a pair of crutches. Little things that just didn't belong in his apartment, that didn't make sense. And then police sketches started circulating, and there was a suspect named Ted, because if you know, he was not hiding his name at all. He was introducing himself as Ted, never used any sort of aliases, and he drove a Volkswagen Beetle. And her stomach just dropped. But she was so in love with him, so in love with him that she just was kind of fighting it. Like she felt guilty and she really wanted her suspicions to be wrong. So Elizabeth went to the police multiple times, and each time that she called, they either forgot about her or they told her that yeah, he was already looked at and he wasn't even someone that they were looking at any longer. So she's trying to reconcile like anything. But the charm that he had was a very, very powerful disguise. And he wore it daily. But years later, Elizabeth would just pour everything out into a memoir called The Phantom Prince: My Life with Ted Bundy. It was raw, painful, and just heartbreaking. She wrote that sometimes she dreamt. So she said that she had a dream that he confessed to her and that she just remembers thinking, okay, well, just if you say you'll never do it again, maybe I'll forgive you. And that scared her. That scared her because it was just like she loved him so much that she really felt that she might be able to like see past it. Like it was awful. And then she stopped talking to Ted before he was going to get executed, and it turns out he had written her a letter. Well, she actually got Elizabeth became very religious, and one day her daughter finds a letter, and it wasn't opened yet. She reads it. It was from Ted saying that he had found God, but her daughter was not about to fucking let her mom read that and then just digress from moving on and actively mourn him after he gets executed. So what she did was she got that letter and she burned it, and she did not tell her mother about it. And it turns out that after Ted was executed, they received a call because right before he got executed, he wanted to send a message to them. And part of the message was wondering why Elizabeth never replied to his last letter. So that's when her daughter confessed. And she knew how easily manipulated her mother was by Ted. And she was going through a whole lot herself, and she was not about to let her mom go back into that bad pattern. So, love, guilt, illusion, 3 chords in a song that plays over and over in a story like this. And by the time Bundy met Carol Ann Boone, he already knew all the notes by heart. They first met in 1974 at the Washington State Department of Emergency Services in Olympia. Ted was like an administrative assistant, did stuff like that. Boone later said that she liked Ted immediately and they hit it off well. She described him as rather shy, with a lot more going on under the surface than what was on the surface. Carol Ann, she was there every day, sitting with the other groupies. She always had this weird smile on her face. She was talking to media, she was defending him tooth and nail. She believed in his innocence. At least that's what she said. She did. I just can't believe that she would actually deep down believe this man was innocent, but she rode hard for him. And the plot thickened in February 1980 when Bundy's trial in Florida for a murder of a 12-year-old girl, where he was representing himself. He had Carol Ann subpoenaed as a character witness for him. He had her on the stand. And as I quote, on the stand, Boone told the jury, she said, "I've never seen anything in Ted that indicates any destructiveness towards any other people. He's a large part of my life and he's vital to me." Then, decked out in a suit and a bow tie and everything, Ted asks her, Do you want to marry me? And she says, yes. And then Bundy says, then I do hereby marry you. And they had already been denied being able to get married. So Ted, being the person he was, researched Florida laws at the time. And because Florida law allowed a public declaration of marriage in court before a judge or a notary to be legally binding, this moment in the court during a trial for a 12-year-old girl who's dead, this became a wedding right in the middle of this murder trial. And the scene looked like the set of a 1970s crime drama, a handsome defendant, his girlfriend witness, a stunned jury, all under the glare of TV cameras. So, according to one source, Bundy had arranged a Tiffany & Co. ring, bought new khaki pants, and of course, he had a bow tie on and Argyle socks for the occasion. All of this footage is available online. I watched a few documentaries that had clips of this, and you can go on YouTube and find this. I watched a Amazon Prime docuseries called Ted Bundy, Falling for a Killer. And this moment was framed as like the epitome of Bundy's public charisma meets crime spectacle. So he wasn't just a murderer on trial. He became a star with love and intrigue attached. But the story didn't end there. Boone gave birth to their daughter, Bundy's only known biological child, in October 1982. And from what I heard, I don't think they were exactly granted conjugal visits, but being that people were just so fucking lenient with him, they were just turning a blind eye to anything that was going on. And by 1986, Boone divorced Bundy because guess what? He made her look like a fucking idiot. Well, so sorry, but after writing so hard, he just decided to start confessing. And the whole reason, the whole little, oh, he's innocent thing just melted away. And she has done a good job staying under the radar because she doesn't participate in any of these documentaries or anything like that, but she sure is talked about. And this episode isn't just about freakish romance. It's a case study in our wider theme. When the public turns murderers into these rock star figures, charming, dangerous, the stage is set for hybristophilia. The man behind the suit is terrifying, but the suit is what makes him visible. So when you picture Bundy's courtroom wedding, ask yourself, who is being celebrated? The defendant, the bride, or the whole spectacle itself? Because when love crashes into infamy, it's often less about romance and more about the illusion of intimacy with someone who holds the worst kind of secret. All right, everybody, let's hop into my time machine. Buckle your seatbelts because we're traveling back to where criminal romance first hit the headlines. It's in the 1930s. America's still limping through the Great Depression, dust in the air, guns in the glove box. Outlaws are becoming folk heroes, and their crimes, oddly enough, sound like rebellion. Enter Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, the original partners in crime. Lovers who pose for photos with shotguns and cigars, grinning like movie stars. Their spree left police officers and civilians dead, but the press didn't print them as monsters. They were printed as icons. The newspaper gave them glamour. Radios turned their manhunt into myth. And when the law finally caught up with them in 1934, riddling their stolen car with bullets, people flocked to the scene. They wanted souvenirs. Some took Bonnie's hair from the wreckage. Others dipped handkerchiefs in the couple's blood, like relics from a twisted love story. Now tell me, What's that if it's not the beginning of America's obsession with criminal romance? You can actually see their infamous bullet hole riddled car on display at Buffalo Bill's in Prim, Nevada, right at State Line on the way to Las Vegas. Let's talk about what's really going on inside of the brain when it comes to hybristophilia, the clinical term for sexual or emotional attraction to someone who has committed a violent crime. The prefix hybristo comes from Greek, meaning to commit an outrage. Fitting, isn't it? Psychologists categorize it into two flavors: passive hybristophilia, attraction from a distance, letters, admiration, a fantasy, and then active hybristophilia, those who help their partners commit crimes or cover them up. But beneath those definitions lies something painfully human. Many of these women describe themselves as empathetic, romantic, misunderstood. They're not drawn to the violence. They're drawn to the illusion of intimacy, to the idea that the killer, despite everything, needs them. For some, it's the fantasy of redemption, the I could fix him delusion. For others, it's proximity to power, fame by association, attention by extension. Dr. Catherine Ramsled, a forensic psychologist, once said hybristophilia often stems from the deep desire to feel significant in the eyes of someone larger than life, even if that life is monstrous. And isn't that hauntingly poetic? The need to be seen, even through the bars of a cell. Now, there's also the adrenaline factor. Danger in small doses mimics attraction. The heart races, palms sweat, fear and arousal share the same pathways. For some, that confusion becomes a kink, and for others, it becomes a coping mechanism. Ted Bundy exploited it. He once said, and I quote, "I'm the most cold-hearted son of a bitch you'll ever meet. But I'll tell you this, people want to look at me because I'm different." And also, Richard Ramirez understood his image. He understood. So he played off of it. The whole big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland. The charisma, the media spectacle, the idea of forbidden intimacy. And what about us, the audience? Every time we say, he didn't look like a killer, we reinforce the dangerous idea that evil always looks evil. It doesn't. Sometimes it smiles and wears a fucking bow tie and a suit and asks for your trust. Hybristophilia isn't just about the love for killers. It's about our discomfort with complexity. We want neat categories, angels and monsters, but being human beings, we're a whole lot messier than that. Some crave chaos because it feels alive. Some fall for darkness because they mistake intensity for love. And some, well, they just want to feel seen in a world that keeps them invisible, you know? So if danger is the drug, attention is the fix. And both are served cold behind bars, baby. So as the lights dim and the lava lamp flickers low, remember, keep it weird, keep it kind, and don't forget your flashlight. And P.S. keep your heart out of solitary confinement. I'm Tessyrella, and this has been Strange and Far Out.